Wait, I'm doing the wrong thing.
The
That's so backwards.
the constant entertainment of I don't know,
Yes.
YouTube production. But anyway, we're here. It's noon. It's Friday. Thank you for everyone who is joining us live. Let me bring up the chat in case anyone joins us. But it's Friday, March 26th. I'm Corey Singletary here with the Citizens Utility Board, and I have got Tom Content, our Executive Director, with me today. And yeah, some big stuff this past week, and we thought it would be good. We haven't done a live stream in a couple of weeks, and there was some big news that we thought would be worth sharing with folks. But in particular, right off the top, I think maybe we want to jump into the commission met last week Thursday and made I think what many folks are feeling is a pretty big decision with respect to utility disconnections. So yeah,
That's
what do you
right.
think,
Hi,
Tom?
everybody. Good afternoon. Good. Is it afternoon already? Well, here we are.
It is.
Yeah, here we are. Yeah, no, it is. It's been a couple big decisions recently. So yeah, that first one was last Thursday. The commission decided to delve back into the whole COVID disconnections issue. And if people remember, there have been no utility disconnections allowed for customers since the pandemic began, since the governor's executive orders started back in March of last year, and that it flowed right into that. They made a few other decisions that kept the moratorium going into the traditional winter moratorium, but they just decided last week that disconnections can resume April 15th. They're still working on some of the details on how utilities can manage their work with their customers on those overdue bills, but and the commission cited a couple of things. One is that the virus situation is improving, that there's a lot of state or federal money that's come in through the CARES Act and through the December bill, and now through the American Rescue Plan Act, that is going to be available for utility customers. And so they made the decision to move forward with disconnections starting April 15th. But certainly our hope is, and I want you to wax on this, but our hope is that utilities will be flexible and work with their customers to the maximum extent possible before any disconnections actually occur.
Yeah, and again, maybe to reiterate, so we're not bearing the lead here, is as of right now, the commission decision, the formal decision hasn't been posted, at least as of when I looked last night. The order isn't out, but the commission met and it decided that beginning April 15th, the utilities could begin disconnecting customers for non-payment. And this had been, as you'd mentioned, there had been a disconnection moratorium, and it had been for residential customers only up to this point.
Right.
The last period of the moratorium was for residential customers only, and we don't have a full detailed picture of all the utilities, utility by utility, in terms of how bad it is for folks. But the one thing that is very clear is that for folks who are behind on their bill, it seems like folks are in pretty bad shape. And the thing we want to try to maybe signal boost as much as possible is, as of today, if you're behind on your bill, you could be disconnected as soon as April 15th. And I would assume the utilities would start sending out disconnection notices in maybe about 2 weeks, a little less than. And if you are behind on your bill, contact your utility right away and ask them about getting on a deferred payment agreement or a DPA. See if, try to work hard try to get them to work hard to get you on a plan that works for you. Many of the utilities, or in particular the bigger utilities, have been trying to be as flexible as possible. And the munis, it's a little bit trickier, but still, regardless of who your utility is, pick up the phone, contact your utility, and get on a payment plan. The other part is, if you are just in a situation where money is the money is just not happening, and you need financial assistance, there is state and federal financial assistance. There's money out there, and you want to try to get get in on that assistance if you qualify, and as much as you can. It's going to vary based on your situation in terms of where you live and where your utility is, but that would be the other thing to do. So it's twofold. If you're behind on your bill, get on a payment plan with your utility right away before the deadline. Don't wait till April 15th. Don't wait till they send you a disconnection notice. And if you need financial assistance to make those payments, as well as keep a roof over your head and everything like that, reach out to the various organizations and agencies that are going to be handling assistance for utility customers. And
Yeah.
I think to your question, I think about flexibility. We've heard from, I think half of the large investor-owned utilities have been, I think, very generous with respect to, particularly compared to how they normally do these things, have been, I think, giving it it's been what we would call a good faith effort, right, to provide flexibility to lower, say, initial payments on payment agreements, things like that. And the munis, it's a little bit more challenging. I'm hoping that maybe some more municipalities and cities put in place some policies where they can be more flexible, and they're not quite so eager in the fall to just kick all this stuff off to the tax rolls and wash their hands of it, but still make it hard for folks. I think flexibility is really going to be key, not only in terms of setting up arrangements for folks to get them on a path back to good standing with their accounts, but it's also going to be important for there to be flexibility in case, someone's kid has to be pulled from school and they got to miss work, and then they miss a paycheck, and then they can't make, they miss a month's payment, or they're short on a month's payment on a payment agreement. I think that kind of flexibility is really going to be key from everybody as we try to get through this.
That's so true, and you really emphasize the right thing, which is don't delay, because there is going to be we're worried that there's going to be a rush of people seeking energy assistance all at the same time. So to the extent that people can reach out to their community action agency, the state has, if you Google emergency rental assistance program, there are multiple sources of funding that have come in from the federal. We have $322 million available statewide that helps with your rent and your utility bills. And there's additional money, another 60 or so million across the state, that local counties and cities have, especially in Milwaukee, Madison area in particular, but others too, where there is money available, and the key is to reach out sooner rather than later. Milwaukee County has an emergency energy assistance right there on the front of its homepage right now, with what to click, the links to click, and so does the state energy office as well. This is the time.
Yeah, so we'll provide some links down in the description after the stream. We'll update those with some of those links to all those offices. But I don't think Tom and I can emphasize it enough. Is do something, act now. Because I think, Tom, you had mentioned that we've been having some conversations with folks in various communities, and they're seeing already challenges where some organizations that are, say, handling energy assistance or handling various elements of, the recovery for these customers, and they're overwhelmed, and they can't handle the influx of need that they need to respond to. And the concern is if everyone who needs help waits until April 15th, that folks are going to get disconnected just because there aren't enough people to pick up the phones, basically.
Right.
So we're going to keep banging this drum until, unless something changes, unless the commission changes, its mind, which it could, but timing-wise, it's probably unlikely given how close it is between now and the disconnection moratorium. But until something changes, we'll continue to try to signal boost this as much as possible and make people aware that they should take action and try to get on a better path.
Yeah, it's a critical time for that. So just check those links after the stream, and of course that we're going to put below, and really don't delay. And if you have issues with the utility, there is a complaint process at the PSC that you can find on their website. Right on the front of their homepage too, or there's some COVID links there too. So So there are options for folks, but it's really time to act if you want to avoid shutoffs.
So I think that was the really big important thing we wanted to make certain that folks were aware of. The other thing, which hopefully isn't quite as dire, I don't think it's negative, is this past week, CUB as an organization, I feel, I don't know how you feel, Tom, I think we crossed a threshold. We had a moment that was possibly the biggest moment in CUB history since the creation of CUB by the legislature in 1979.
Yeah, no, you think about it, and that's not overstating it. So what CUB has always struggled with, Ralph Nader had this vision of creating CUB in 1974. He started that down this path, and Wisconsin was the first state to create a CUB. But the challenge was always, how can you sustain it? How can you sustain it? And in terms of being able to have a funding model that keeps CUB able to do its job as the only professional consumer advocate for Wisconsin small businesses and residential customers of the monopoly utilities. This step forward is huge. And so what happened is the legislature, the state Senate this week, unanimously in a voice vote passed the PSC omnibus bill, which includes this consumer advocate proposal. It had passed last week in the Assembly, and so now it's on its way to Governor Evers' desk. So we're excited.
Yeah, this is a big moment for CUB, and I think it's only appropriate. CUB we have a small team, so we thought for this momentous moment it might be worthwhile bringing someone else on board here. We've got Rich Stork, our director of operations and outreach and communications and development, and you wear a lot of different hats, but this is a big moment for CUB, and I thought it might be interesting. Folks probably aren't aware of kind of the unique situation and the unique path and history that CUB has had on this. And between the three of us, Rich, you've been here, the longest. And so you have a feeling for, how it has been in the past and, how CUB has worked, the constraints we've had to work under. And I'm curious as to how you feel about this change with, the new funding legislation and hopefully soon law that will be signed by Governor Evers.
Yeah, thanks a lot. It's great to join you guys today. I'm very excited for our members first, and for the residential and small business customers that we represent in these great cases. So I just like to say to our members how thank you for 41 years of support and sticking with us and getting us to this point where we can have more staff, more in-house experts to tackle these cases. And that's why our members have been supporting is for the work that Corey's been doing and Tom have been doing, and in front of the Public Service Commission, keeping an eye on the utilities and doing whatever we can to mitigate these rate increases. We're very, very happy for our members.
Yeah, so maybe the short version of what what was passed by the legislature is a provision that would let me back up. So what it would allow us to do is it would allow us to put together a budget for what we think we need as a consumer advocate for the coming year, and apply for up to $900,000, or not even apply for, we could budget for up to $900,000 of funding to come through this process, and the PSC would review that, just as they review things for the utilities, in terms of making certain everything looks good. But then that money would just be a pass-through from utility customers through the utility to us to allow us to do the work on behalf of customers. And I think that was one of the things that, Tom, I think you had more conversations with legislators and other stakeholders, but I think setting up a mechanism to allow customers to directly fund an advocate, on their behalf seemed like it was a big deal for them. And I guess a question for both of you. How do you see this really changing how we as an organization do business on behalf of the ratepayers from, maybe 5 years ago, 6 years ago to now in the future.
Yeah, no, I think on that point you just raised, I think the legislators they know that the small customers, the grandma on a fixed income, the small business owner, the renter, everybody needs a voice, right? And what Representative Kuglich, who was the co-author of this bill, basically announced at our 40th anniversary celebration a year and a half ago, was that CUB needed a stable and sustainable funding source, and that was the vision that he had. That was the vision that PSC Chair Rebecca Cameron-Block had as well, and they came together, and that's how this is happening. And it is pretty dramatic compared with where CUB has been. I wasn't here for as long as Rich. Obviously, I joined in 2017, but we've come a long way just since 2015, and that's when CUB sustained a major funding cut. And so the work since 2015 has been really about building back understanding of what we do, and with the support of our members who've stuck with us and contributed to where we are, to help keep us going. They've helped. They and then now this legislation are setting us on this new path. What would you add, Rich?
Yeah. From my perspective, and outreach, is we're looking forward to doing a whole lot more of that. We're very excited to be getting some experts in to work with Corey at the Public Service Commission, and Tom and I are looking forward to getting into the communities, especially on issues of equity, on issues of possibly energy conservation, energy efficiency. And being more visible and finding more folks like our members, so we can have more members and more members active in their communities on these issues.
Right, and essentially, what with you're looking at CUB's full-time staff. We have 3 full-time staffers today, and so the big change is we'll be able to expand. We lost our staff attorney a few years ago, and this funding model will enable us to have a staff attorney, and as well as add some analyst support, so that Corey, who's our regulatory guru and regulatory director, will be able to direct more than himself, and so so he can actually we'll have a team of folks that are basically doing the wonky stuff at the commission, to advocate for lower rates, advocate for fairness, advocate for sound policies for the small customers. And then that frees me up along with Rich, as Rich said, to be more visible around the state and to really focus on that other mission that CUB has, which is education. So we work on the PSC side, and then we have an education side, and these videos are part of that education side. The website, other things we do, and appearances and talks around the state pre-COVID and post-COVID. We haven't been able to do that. We've been doing some virtual ones, and if you're interested in a virtual presentation about CUB, let us know through the comments, or send us a note. What do you think, Corey?
I mean, I think it's a big change. I mean, and I'm interested in Rich's perspective on this too. Is, I, like you, Tom, joined CUB in 2017, and prior to that, I had worked as staff with the Public Service Commission for 7 years. And during that time, both pre and during, after that funding cut you described, CUB operated as an organization that I think, like a lot of consumer advocate offices around the country, not all, but many, where you had a core staff of folks whose job was to sort of monitor the issues and get the organization involved in cases, but then would primarily hire outside consultants on an ad hoc basis for cases, for issues. And so you didn't necessarily have economists or rate experts or financial or experts or auditors in house. Though CUB would go out and hire those folks to then work, do the work before the PSC. And from, with the way that this business works, and on the one hand, things seem to happen all the time. It seems like there's always something going on, but issues come along on long cycles, usually at least a year or 2 years or 3 years between times when you touch a particular issue that might be policy or rates, and having the institutional memory in-house on the technical stuff, I feel is super important. And that was something I found really valuable when I worked on commission staff before everyone sort of retired around me. But I think that's, for me, is the biggest sort of benefit, is the benefit we can then provide to customers is we can be a better advocate for them because we have someone around that hopefully either directly remembers what happened 3, 4, 5 years ago, and as a result can do the job better now, or there's at least some transfer from staff person to staff person, so that we can better do that work. I mean, what do you think, Rich? I mean, you were here when it was more that who do we need to hire for this case? Are we getting involved in a particular case? And I know Dennis, I think, is primarily dealing with that, but how do you feel this is going to change the nature of how we do sort of the regulatory work, than the sort of the core advocacy work that CUB does?
Well, it's going to be a big change. Having folks in house will be able to react to issues that come up very quickly. In the past, like you were saying, the process was issue would come up, and we'd have to figure out our position on the issue, and then figure out, okay, who's an expert who can help us with this? And we couldn't just bring them in right away. The process was we had to then have them do a budget for us, where we would then go to the commission and say, can we bring these people in the case? And time would go by, and time would go by, and time would go by, and on that specific issue, and that's what they would do. That's how we've operated. When Corey came in almost 4 years ago, that started to change. We had an expert in-house who could handle some of these tasks immediately. And with the new staff, we'll be able to do even more of that. Things will be more flexible. And what I'm excited about are the things that I can't even imagine. Once we have extra staff in here and they get talking about these issues, I'm envisioning, instead of just being reactive, we may be even more proactive on cases. We may be initiating action on certain levels. I don't know if that's the case. I'm not a program person, but being around, I'm wondering if that's going to be a consequence of this, is that we're going to be able to get a whole lot more involved. These aren't going to be just like replacing our experts. There's going to be so much more they'll be able to do because they're here, and we'll be in constant communication. They'll be in touch with the people we deal with, the commission, any legislation, although other organizations were involved in the cases, whereas our outside experts were from other states, and they were excellent, but they would handle their very specific thing with us, and they had very many specific things that are handling for other clients. So our experts aren't going to be like that. They're going to be working for CUB all the time. So I'm very excited about that aspect of it, and I'm very excited about what I can't even imagine is going to come of this. The things that are going to surprise me from having this extra program staff.
Yeah, I think you're right, Rich. I mean, to your, I guess, just kind of thinking out loud, I think that we already, I think, are be able to be more, I guess, proactive, particularly as compared to before. I mean, a simple example is, under the previous model, if a utility picked up the phone in January, February, March, like they have the last couple of years, and said, okay, we've got a rate filing this year, let's sit down and talk about whether or not there are any issues that we might be able to settle, partially or in whole, right, for the case. And in the past, whether it was Kurt, our previous executive director, Kira, or any of the other attorneys that we've had in the past, they would have to, they had some level of expertise because they had been around, for a while. But in terms of the technical aspects, it was still either they had to kind of hope and guess that they were thinking along the right path, or you had to somehow go out and hire an expert, which really doesn't work within the context of a settlement or these type of like proactive, getting ahead of things, discussions, because of the process you described, Rich. So I think we've already been able to start being more, proactive in the sense that before an application, even before it hits the commission, we're able to talk about things with the utilities, and in those conversations, we've seen, it's not monumental changes, but we've seen where utilities have taken that feedback and sort of improved on maybe what they were originally thinking, before it gets to a formal stage. One thought I had was, someone who isn't maybe isn't particularly familiar with CUB, or maybe someone who is and has maybe been donating for quite a while, might look at this and say, okay, well, you have this money now that that state law will essentially provide for you. Why does CUB need donors? Why does CUB need members to donate money to us? Which I think is a reasonable question, but there is a very important role for our donors and members going forward. And I was wondering if you could maybe talk about that a little bit, either one of you.
Yeah, I'll start with that and pass it off to Tom. We absolutely are going to continue with our members. While this legislation and what it provides for us we're approaching where we need to be, is what it does. We're not there yet. Even though this is significant, it is huge, but there's so much more that we want and need to do, and we need members to do that. The purpose behind this funding is very specific. It's on having a representation at PSC, and that's important, and we're very grateful for that. We're excited to be doing so much more, and so we need the continued support of our members. We'll be seeking more members, so we can do even more advocacy, more education outside of the bounds of the funding that we've got.
Yeah, I think you said it really well, and I think of the comment that our board president, Eileen Hannigan, who's been around CUB through some of the, she describes it as a roller coaster, right? We've gone through some darker times and some bright, and now some lighter times, but to the extent that CUB wants to be independent for decades or a generation to come, I think that there's a value there. There's a value there to sustaining CUB, whether it's through or potentially creating an endowment or other things that basically ensure that CUB is sustainable for a long time. And Rich, you raised a good point. We had a flyer that was used in connection with communications about the legislation. And when you think about how unique Wisconsin is, only two states, you may have heard this before, but only two states, Oregon and Wisconsin, rely solely on CUBs to do this work. And if you look at other Midwest states, they have state agencies like a state attorney general's office plus a CUB. So Ohio, Michigan, Illinois, Minnesota, they all have both. And if you take the budgets of all those organizations together, and other states are spending $1.5 million to up to over $6 million a year on consumer advocacy, on making sure there's that level playing field between the utilities and the customer side when it comes to making decisions that affect customers. And even with this funding, we'll be able to budget for $900,000 a year from the PSC. But even with this funding, that is below the next lowest state across the Midwest. So we still need support. Some advocate offices and some CUBs have much bigger staffs than obviously than ours, but even than the 2 or 3 additional people we'll be able to hire as full-time regulatory staff with this bill.
Yeah, I think the key is that, maybe to Representative Kuglich's words, is what this legislation and what this law will provide for CUB is stability in the funding, and sustainable is an interesting word to use, but it's basically like it's a stable funding source. It gets us to the point where where we can sort of maintain, sort of minimal operational capacity, and not have to worry about like what happens next year necessarily. I mean, it's a fixed dollar amount that's going to go into law. So at some point, when costs invariably go up over time, with inflation, we'll have to see about that. But it gets us a stable and predictable funding source, so that we don't have to worry quite so much about whether or not we're turning out the lights next year. But I think to both your points, it's not while it's stable and predictable, it's not necessarily sufficient, I guess. If you think about it from the standpoint of, as a consumer advocate, you would want to, in an ideal world, you would have sort of a micro version of what the commission staff has, right? You would have an expert in sort of all of the major utility cost functions, so that the consumer advocate could, on their own, independently review things alongside with commission staff, alongside other stakeholders, to best represent the customers that we represent, which are the small customers that can't do this work without someone to sort of advocate on their behalf. And
I remember. Just to interrupt, I remember when we were talking about this, we put all the staff functions, all the different staff and analyst areas of expertise on the whiteboard, and the list got pretty long.
Yeah.
I mean, it's accounting, it's finance, it's fuel costs, it's capital structure, it's
engineering, it's economics,
it goes on and on. Once you start into this path, I learned how much of a generalist I am, and how much I value the expertise that you bring, but the expertise that we're going to be adding.
Yeah, and even just as a practical matter, there are certain things that we can't use this funding for. We have particularly in the last 3-ish years tried to make certain that if there are major issues that come up before with the municipal utilities and affect our municipal utility constituency in terms of those customers, that we try to participate in those cases. But the funding that would come through this new law could not be used for that, as is just a simple practical matter example. There's a myriad of other things where I think, to Rich's point, member support and is going to be key, really for the long haul for CUB in Wisconsin.
Yeah, that's right. It is exciting though. I mean, Governor Dreyfus signed the original CUB bill into law in November of 2017. When Governor Evers does sign this into law, this is going to be, as transformational as the original creation.
Yeah, cool. I'm looking at my drink over here, and I'm like, this Gatorade's really not doing it for me. So I feel like this is more appropriate for the occasion.
There you go.
I feel like what we got going on. Any other thoughts that you guys have? I mean, on what this is going to allow us to do, or things that you're just looking forward to.
I'm going to ask one of the things you asked Rich earlier in a slightly different way, because Rich, you've been here 26 years, correct? This will be year 27, I think, in June, right?
Yes.
So what does this really mean for you as someone who's kind of you are the institution, you are the institutional memory that we have. We're looking at you.
Well, it's a huge step forward. One that just personally I'm very grateful for. It's been really exciting just these last 4 years, first with Tom coming in and then with Corey, and all that both of you bring to CUB is very impressive, and really that has vaulted us forward, and your efforts for us to take this step are immense as well. And so it just to me, I'm just excited about the opportunity. And the doors this will open for us. For quite some time, we've been doing amazing work. We've been doing incredible things in rate cases, but there's always felt a little held back, that there's more that we can do. And with this, I think we take a step towards that. We'll be doing more, and there's opportunity now, and to do even more. So I'm looking at this and very grateful for it, and seeing then what other doors it opens for us, so we can advance even more and do even more. What I feel is there's been a gap in expertise between what CUB has and what the folks who are trying to do things, utilities, the other the commission, what they're able to bring to the table as far as expertise. I feel we've closed the gap a bit, and we need to continue doing that. So this is a great start. I'm very excited about it, and it's one of those things that you look back and say, how do we, maybe 5 years from now or 10 years from now, how did you guys get to this point? It's like, well, back in 2021, this happened. That got us on the path to where we are now. So I'm excited. There are challenges. There are things we still need to do, and we have a lot of hard work ahead of us. This certainly isn't the end. It's a beginning. That yes, it feels like we kind of, to me, as someone who's been around a while, it feels like we've broken out a bit, and there are possibilities now for us.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah,
I'll drink. If I had something, I'd drink to that.
You left all that beer here. I mean, that's
I know. Oh, that's right.
I occasionally forget that it's been. I mean, this has been. It's been a longer term path. I think, to your point, Rich, in terms of how we've been trying to evolve CUB. Not only just the three of us. 4 of us when Kate was still on staff, and 5 with, if you count, Kurt when he was in the office before he sailed off into the sunset for retirement. And, it's been this sort of evolutionary process, but just this most recent chapter, I forget that we started this in earnest like a year and a half ago. I remember, sitting down with the 3 of you around a table and being like, okay, if we could go from a blank sheet of paper and make this go in a way that makes sense for CUB, for the customers, the utility customers, for the desire of various entities to have oversight and things like that, how would we do this? And that's the thing that's amazing is that we started from a clean sheet of paper, and we sat down and we wrote. We wrote a piece of legislation that, had some tweaks along the way, but by and large, what's on the governor's desk right now reflects, I would say, 90% of, how we envisioned this would work, which I find is pretty amazing. And I just wish, COVID hadn't, screwed up everyone's timelines last year, and and this would have been, done a while ago.
Already done, yeah. That's true.
Yeah.
It's remarkable, and we took some of the best of what some other states have done, like Oregon, trying to keep its CUB with us, which did find a slightly different path, but did create a stable funding source for it. And then we adapted it to what we thought would fit for Wisconsin. But I think of the work. I really appreciate the work that both the 2 of you put in on it, and I can't emphasize that enough. But I'm also thinking of the predecessors who were trying to figure out the next steps for CUB over the last 15 years. Kurt Rumsler, my immediate predecessor, Kira Lair before that, and Charlie Higley before that, and it was the challenge of doing this is such that it became a project for an academic pursuit. Charlie Higley got a master's in business administration, and his theme or his research project was essentially focused on a more stable funding model for CUB. So this is building on the work that Charlie, Kira, Kurt have all put in to try to get CUB to this more stable footing, and I really appreciate. They all provided input as we were developing this as well. I reached out to Kurt was still in the office, but we reached out to my other predecessors as well, and and this reflects, a group, a lot of great ideas from a lot of great folks. It wasn't just the three of us around the table. That started it, but it wasn't just that.
No, that's absolutely correct. Yeah, it really started with Charlie. He recognized it. The paper he wrote on CUB, and when we have it, it's an amazing thing to read. And so, yeah, you're right. That was kind of the genesis of the next step. And so it has been a 15-year process that it culminates in where we are today. And now we get together and think of where to go from here and how to do even more. It's very exciting.
Charlie texted this week and was so excited, and he pointed out that it took two sessions of the legislature to get his bill through, which was creating the grant that CUB uses today, or has been using. It took two sessions of the legislature back in Jim Wayner's days to get the original CUB bill passed to create CUB, and here we are again. We're only in March, so we're early in the session, but it took two sessions to get this done this time too. So there's some symmetry there, right? It's just the CUB way.
I'm hoping maybe in the future it won't be quite so much emblematic of a representative of the notion that government is the slow boring of hard wood. Which is how it's kind of felt a little bit at times, especially when the world was on pause in the middle of last year.
Right.
But yeah, it'll be interesting. And if anyone who's watching this right now happens to have expertise in any various utility, technical areas, particularly finance, accounting, equity markets, things of that nature, keep an eye out for postings that we might be putting out for recruitments for CUB, and you can work for this fine small nimble team, and do the work of the people in a slightly different way than maybe working for state government. But that's my little pitch. Come work for CUB. It's a great place. But yeah, it'll be fun. It'll be fun to get more people in the office and really really roll our sleeves up and see what we can get done.
Or if you're a consumer advocate already doing this stuff around the country and want to come live in Wisconsin, Madison, come to Madison. Think about it.
Madison's one of the best cities in the country to live in.
There you go. So we've got it. You'll be coming to join us as we build something even bigger. So it's exciting.
Cool. Well, was there anything anyone wanted to throw in? Closing thoughts, closing shots, anything?
I think Rich started off right by thanking our members who've been there with us through thick and thin, and we're going to be doing some special communications, in the weeks and months ahead to them, thanking them and kind of explaining this whole thing. Just as we've been doing here, but it always comes back to the folks who are the customers who are supporting us. So appreciative.
No, that's mine too. We want to thank our members who've stuck with us for so long and have had our backs for 4 decades now. And anyway, we have donors. We have donors who give us 4 figures a year. We have donors who give us $5-10 a year. And we appreciate it all. It's the commitment and understanding our issues and the business support. To have our members call, how's it going? What's happening with this issue? And they understand it, they get it, and they support us. And that's it buoys us. It's an amazing feeling to have folks behind you. And we're really looking for even more folks like that.
All right.
Super.
I can't say it any better, and I keep looking over here because I've got the legislature website up, and I just keep checking to see if it's moved on from yesterday's journal entry of being presented to the governor. I was hoping that maybe while we were talking it might have been signed, but that might be hoping for too much in terms of serendipity. But yeah, exciting times for CUB, exciting times for utility customers, public utility customers around the state, all the little guys that we work on behalf of. Thank you for your support, and we'll continue to support you. And anyway, thanks for joining us. Thanks for watching this. If you watch this, on replay, and we'll see you all in the next video. Thanks.
Thanks.